Hello, booktube. Sorry for the slight delay in coming onto my own live stream. This would have been a very different live stream if I remembered how to do this. But unfortunately, I set the whole thing up and set it for 5 p.m. Boston time. And I did that quite some time ago and just missed completely the fact that I'd set it to private. So you had no idea that was happening. So I had to go in, I had to control my temper, go in, make sure that I could control the thing and set it, bump it up a little and set it to public. And so here I am with my throat carrying material really just being a little bit of taking stock here at the end of the year. It's just 2 weeks until the year is over. Uh, I imagine a lot of you are doing a version of some kind of taking stock or not, at the very least of your reading life. And I'm doing the same thing. I wanted to get a little to that, just a bit, but first I want to show some books that have come recently. One we saw already. We saw this, a paperback of Christopher Gauch's one-volume biography of Vietnam. A lovely thing, really, from Basic Books. Yeah, from Basic Books. Just a lovely trade paperback. And it was bothering me when I opened this on in a mail haul. It was bothering me what my interaction with it was, and I found it. It was actually on this channel. We've actually seen the hardcover on this channel. I'm pretty sure that I hauled it in a video. Uh, 8 years ago, a long, long time ago. This is what the 2016 hardcover looked like. I remember it vividly. I remember that I had the finished copy of this thing, and I feel almost 100% certain that I showed it on this channel back in 2016. Almost completely sure of that. The one thing I haven't been able to figure out is whether or not I wrote for it, whether or not I wrote about it, and in what venue. I can't, for instance, tell if I wrote the Kirkus review, or if maybe I reviewed it for some venue and that's just not findable online. I feel certain that I wrote about it, but there's that. And then there are a couple of new arrivals that I wanted to show you. One is for the first week in January, but I don't count it as a 2024 release because it's a paperback reprint, much like the Vietnam reprint. And it's this. It's a Why Read by Will Self in a trade paperback. This comes out in um, January 9th, but it was out already. This came out in the United States a couple of years ago, I think. Yeah, 2022. This was, of course, it has a funny publishing story behind it because the original mock-up of the thing had the normal procession of title and author, and then the folks at Self's publishing house and maybe Self himself, certainly sardonic observers, noticed that when you line it up that way, the book says "Why Read Will Self." Which is, to be fair to him, probably a question that he has often asked. But I'm pretty sure if you're his publisher, you don't want just a stack of books constantly saying "Why read Will Self? Why read Will Self?" So it was changed to Will Self. Why read? And this is a collection of literary and bookish related columns of his that they range from uh, make weight to really good and well worth a reread. I was kind of shocked when I got this. My first reaction was to go over to I have a gigantic shelf for books, books about reading and writing, prefaces, that sort of thing. I went over there right away uh, for my hardcover, and it's not there. I don't know what explains that. I mean, older books that I find at the Brattle, sure, I give those away all the time, but who would even want who would even I'm not bashing Will Self. I really like him, but I can't imagine sending this to anybody. But I don't have. I'm glad that I got the paperback because I don't have the hardcover at all. And then this thing, I feel sorry for this book. This is Reaction Books, distributed by the University of Chicago Press, I believe. Uh, and I feel sorry for this thing because it actually has a pub date of like the 29th of December. so so it's going to be ignored. It's going to be completely ignored. All critics they have already finished their year-end list. They have already finished noticing the books of 2023. And 2024 is barely going to pause to get over its eggnog hangover before it starts bombarding them with 2024 releases. Books that come out in the final week of the year. Why would you do that? Why on earth would you do that? Uh, I am going to do my best by it. I'm certainly going to read it. I'm going to read it tonight. It's by Elisa Brilli and Giuliano Milani, and it's called Dante's New Lives: Biography and Autobiography. And the gist that I got from the introduction is that the authors congenially dislike the methodology of most Dante biographies, and would like to change that up a bit and maybe go at it in a different way, maybe a less homogenizing way. I think it's rather I think there's a rather amount of symmetry here in a couple of different ways. This book appeared in hardcover on this channel right at the beginning of this channel, and right at the beginning of this channel, one of the very first books that I got in any kind of a controlled mail haul. This was before I started opening packages on camera. Was a biography of Dante that I no longer have. Santagata, I think, was the author's name. And now at the end of 2023, an unbelievable year, another Dante biography. And this one, the Santagata book, is, I think, the type of thing that these two authors are aiming at when they say that they're not 100% happy in the way that Dante biographies have been written. I think they're aiming at that kind of a narrative, sanded down, unified thing. I think they want to produce something different, something that's not quite so canonical. Uh, so we will see. I will see tonight. So those are just a few. Where are we going to put these, Bean? Let's put these over here. Those are just a few books that have been on my mind. I will reread the Will Self book tonight. I will definitely read the Dante book tonight. I'll read it very carefully. I feel sorry for it though, because who's going to pay it any attention? I suppose it's possible that major literary genres, major literary venues got an advance copy of it. I did not get an advance copy of this thing. It's possible that the London Review of Books or the TLS got an advance copy of this thing and have just docketed a review that will appear in due time. I certainly hope so. A major new biographical inquiry into Dante, you don't want that to slip between the cracks just because it's published at the worst time of the year. Don't ever. Your publisher should never publish releases, never bring them to market in the final days of a year. It's not just the critics who are checked out then. It's also the bookstores and especially the book readers. I guess maybe those readers aren't so hung up on the release dates as critics would be. But those are some books. And then before I dive into the chat, because this can't be a long Steve stream, I want to cover two other things. One was a kind of overview of 2023, just very briefly, in reading my own overview of 2023. But before we do that, I also wanted to give you a visual demonstration of something. Because the other day, I think it might have been yesterday, I mentioned in a video that I have, in addition to a whole bunch of other things to do, I have a huge pile of unopened, unanswered solicitation mail. Not necessarily junk mail. I might want to interact with it, but I mentioned in a video that I lay these things down to I don't give them immediate attention, especially if they want a checky poo. I don't give them immediate attention. Instead, I lay them down and let them mature. I've let this get out of hand. There's way too many of them. I had a number of you email me and say, "Well, how bad could it possibly be?" I wanted to show you how bad it is. It's this. This is how bad it is. I have to deal with all of these this weekend. I want to finish. I want this to vanish this weekend. I want to reduce that pile to a handful of checks going out in the mail on Monday. So that's a visual demonstration for you to let you know. What I really ought to do instead is just get my surly houseboy to handle this sort of thing. He's offered many times. I just don't do it. I really should, so that it doesn't back up like this. And then the other thing before I turn to the chat was just a brief overview. I'm curious to know what your overview of your 2023 was like for reading. or for the bookish side of your world, of course, the bookish side of my world includes BookTube, where I made a lot of videos. I haven't done the final count yet because I'm not done making videos yet, but it's a lot. I made a lot of videos in 2023, and also my reading in 2023 was really good. I am on track. In the next week, we'll see it out, and I'm on track in the next week to achieve an all-time personal high in terms of uh, reading, in terms of number of books read. I'm very, very pleased with it. There were long stretches in 2023 where I didn't feel like doing anything other than read, which is weird considering how much writing I did in 2023. You'd think that wouldn't be true, but there were large. I don't know what's going on there. It might just be that reading on a Kindle is just so comfortable. It's just so comfortable. Maybe that had something to do with it, or maybe could just, I mean, my drive to read has always been pretty strong, so it could be that. I like, for instance, feel it tonight. I have all of these bills to go through, whatever all of these things are. I have no idea what they are, but I have all of them to go through, and I also have writing to do. I have 2 pieces of writing to do. Technically, they're not due until start of business on Monday, but I'd like to really dig into them, and despite that, all I think about is reading. All I want to do when I finish this live stream is just pack everything in and read. I'm not going to do that, but that's all I want to do. Anyway, so I'm curious to know, my 2023 was really good for reading. It's really good for writing too, but it was really good for reading. Uh, and I'm curious to know about everybody else. I've been watching booktubers, for instance, people who have channels. Some of them are doing year-end reflections, and I think there's an end of the year tag. So I've been watching a lot of those, but I'd love to hear it in conversation as well. How your 2023 went? Did you like it for reading? Uh, but anyway, let's turn to the chat because we're not gonna. This is not gonna be a long chat. So, Moni Doyle says hello. Tolstoy 111 says hello. Francisco says hello. Jenny Park says hello. Kevin JN says hello. Talk about serendipity. I was just thinking of emailing you requesting stream. Miss your insights. I don't know how many insights there are, but yes, it's been a while since we did a Steve stream. Monet Doyle says I have read a lot of Christmas romance books, but I'm feeling like I don't want to read any more of them. Yeah, they can be a bit the same. I could understand that you'd get burned out. James Rucala says hi. Monet Doyle says it seems like the Christmas romance books are all the same story. Yeah, yeah, I could understand why you'd want a little variety. Omen Fazeli says hello, everyone. Much needed Steve stream. I don't know how needed it is either, but I'm certainly I've missed it. So I'm glad. I know that in a way I'm also using you while I'm procrastinating because I don't want to get to this. Whatever this is. I don't want to get to that. I don't want to. It's going to be very boring and very expensive, probably. Probably. I mean, I'll have the checkbook, right out with me, right next to me as I open all of these things, and I will do my best to be very stern. I will go through each of them and say, nope, nope, nope. But some of them are so self-evident that they have to be done, and most of them make it difficult. I don't know why. I don't know why periodicals do that. The London Times Literary Supplement, the TLS, one of the only periodicals I really can't do without. They just bill me. They bill my card on a quarterly basis for the or a monthly basis for the TLS. It's absolutely no fuss. I don't know why every place doesn't do that. Uh, let's see here. Alex Blair says, "Hi Steve, what are your best of the year lists going to appear next year?" No idea. No promises for next year. Grix, etc. Steve, can you terminate this stream right now and start again in 1 hour? I need to submit an essay tonight, and right now you are on in the way. Afraid not. No, in an hour we'll be over. Uh, Tim's way too many books. Oh, no message there. Grix, what? No, now the chat has jumped, and then it jumped again. When I touched it, it jumped a second time. Grix says the covers of these books are so beautiful. Yes, the authors of the Dante book want to stress the mythologizing tendency of Dante biographies by pointing out the mythologizing going on this cover. In Dante's view of the world, the sun is not that prominent, and also Dante never saw the Duomo. That this is a later date. This is a mythologizing cover. So yeah, the cover is particularly good, and the Vietnam book managed to be beautiful both in the paperback and in the hardcover. That's kind of rare. Uh, Let's see here. Tim's Too Many Books. Why read Will Self? I love a book title that's a hostage to fortune. Grick says, what is the best nonfiction of 2023 coming out? Are you doing autobiography this year? Best nonfiction of 2023 is out. It's up. Autobiography is no, no. It's autobiography is folded into nonfiction. So if there's any autobiographical books, it'll be there. Uh, if they're not in worse nonfiction, that is. Michael Dostoevsky says, "LOL, how's that Trump sucks comment coming along these days?" No idea what that means. Alex Blair, I had a great reading this year, although a reading year this year, although I read more fiction than nonfiction. That always seems to happen, even though I prefer nonfiction. It happens to me too. I love nonfiction. There's for me, it's not even close. It's not even close in terms of percentages. How much I love them, it's not even close. But there's so much more fiction, and it's everywhere. That it's I always end up with those skewed numbers too. Omid Fazeli, I dropped out of my PhD program, so the best reading year after so many years. Oh my. Well, that's great that your reading year was good, but I don't like hearing about that. It sounds bad. Tolstoy 111, what are your thoughts on the 12 chairs by Ilf and Petrov? It's reputed to be difficult to relate to without intimate knowledge of early Soviet bureaucracy. I don't know it. Kevin JN, enjoyable 2023 for me. From War and Peace to Prophet Song, my latest read, not bad. Great. Glad to hear it. James Rucala says, I had a great reading year, including all of Shakespeare and Austen. The STD Book Club, almost completing the Western Canon Starter Kit. If you don't come back next year, I'm joining QAnon to the limited extent that there's a difference between the two. Jenny Park says, I'm currently at 178 books read and hopefully going to get a few more finished in the last couple of weeks. That's an excellent. That's excellent. I always think the impression I get is that anywhere around 200 is an exceptional reading year for most people. So I'm always rooting for people to get up into the the 180s or the 200s. I think that's great. Uh, Jared Henderson is here. Best thing I read all year was Big Canoe News. Have you read it? Yes, yes, indeed I have. What Jared is referring to, for those of you who don't know, is a tiny print newspaper in northern Georgia. They come out once a month, and they have all the usual local newspaper sections, but they also have a book section. Not a book review tucked in the arts section, but a separate standalone book section. And I am the editor of that section. And I have a blast, absolute blast, assembling an issue every month for Big Canoe. uh, let's see here. Becky Fair says, I retired after 40 years of high school science teaching. Reading has been great. Good Lord. Congratulations. Grix says, what do you think about Roberto Colasso? I'm reading The Ruin of Cash. Uh, I know that he's revered. If you can figure out what The Ruin of Cash or anything else that he ever wrote is about, feel free to tell me. Grix says, again, my reading year was great, but my number of books was almost half of last year's. I wonder if BookTube had something to do with it. Well, you just made my number was it's already more than last year, and it's going to be. I'm not done yet, so but no, it's just a number after all. Natalia says, "Hi, Steve. Were there any good biographies of writers published this year?" Sure, sure there were. Yeah. Tomorrow's Classic says, Steve, what did you think of that new collection of Ray Bradbury letters? I love Bradbury and might pick it up even if I can stomach a full price of a new book. I didn't like it all that much, and that's weird considering how much I've come to like letter collections in 2023. Maybe I should go at it again. Maybe I should do that and see. I just Bradbury seemed absent from a lot of the letters that he was writing. If you're going to make a letters collection, you really can't pick the stuff that people just jotted off. You can if you can pick that if you want, but you're really going to weigh down the collection if you do that. A lot of people that are reading his collection of letters from him or anybody else don't know what it was like to write letters. I had an absolutely working routine set up every morning. That was the thing that I did after I'd stretched and walked around and taken care of the dogs. I did correspondence. That's how I started my day, and it was all extremely uh, programmed. There wasn't any of this. This didn't happen because you needed to write letters. You couldn't or type letters. You couldn't just let it go or go to email. So I had just a stack of things to do, and I prioritized it, and I'd be willing to bet that a writer whose time is money, like Bradbury, probably did the same thing. And if you're doing a letters collection, you really don't want you want to know that he prioritized, and you want to make sure you're only including the things that he cared about, not the stuff that he was just dashing off. That was one of my problems with what was it called, that George H.W. Bush letter collection? Was it called All Yours? Uh, yours with affection, something like that. Yours truly, whatever, George W. Bush or George H.W. Bush, but the first President Bush. A charming volume, but I thought it was hurt by the fact that a lot of make-weight letters were included in there. Uh, but anyway, let me see here. Ellis says currently reading the Sir Walter Raleigh biography by Anne Baer that we corresponded about. Oh, good. Jenny Park says uh, I normally get between 80 and 90 read, but I keep picturing you scolding me for allowing distractions to get in the way. Scold me, me. I merely point out that people who complain about not reaching their goals are often uh, allowing themselves to be distracted a lot by a lot of things. uh, Nick Piccirilli says, I saw the new Godzilla movie and can see why you kept rewatching. Oh, good. I am still rewatching it. I'm waiting for something to take its place. I have fixations like this with movie screeners that I get, and nothing has dislodged the King of Monsters so far, but it could happen. Uh, Tolstoy 111 says Mel Brooks made a feature film of the 12 chairs in 1970 with Frank Langella, Ron Moody, and Dom DeLuise. I don't know it. Michael Dostoevsky says, is there an apocalyptic tag you have done? I didn't know there was an apocalyptic tag. Is there one? Uh, I don't know if there was one. I don't remember one. James Ricala says, does Marjorie Taylor Greene get Big Canoe News? We know she doesn't read it. She is the representative for my paper's district. I'm sure she doesn't read. I'm sure that she doesn't read. And it's not a question of that she's too busy. She's full MAGA, and MAGA hates reading. And not that they hate what they read. They hate the act of reading. They hate it. They associate it with the focus of all of their world, which is that one uppity brother-in-law, that one uppity cousin, the one who went to college, the one who reads. They'll do anything to own that one person. They'll do anything to do that. And that means shipwrecking their own lives and the lives of their children. They'll be happy to do that. They'll do anything to own that person. That person likes to read, so you do not read. No way. It's a cursed activity, regardless of the subject matter. So I know that Marjorie Taylor Greene doesn't read Big Canoe News, but it's still eerie to think that maybe at some point in her day, she might have seen it. I don't actually know. I don't know how Big Canoe News is distributed in northern Georgia. I don't know, like for instance, where you would find it. Would you find it in grocery stores? Or I don't know. I don't know exactly how it's distributed. I know that we're not in the Atlanta market, so you won't find it on a newsstand in Atlanta. I'd like to change that, but the book section every month is wonderful. Though I say it myself, full color, beautifully laid out, and no concessions made to the fact that it is perhaps the smallest print newspaper in the country. We don't make any concessions to that fact. I don't make any concessions to that fact. It is a working new release book section, columns and reviews of new releases in the American book market, just like you would find in newspapers with a million times our budget that do the same thing. It's just a smaller version of that. Uh, Dylan says, "Hi Steve, glad to have caught a Stevestream again. The highlight of my literary year was going down to the Gore Vidal YouTube rabbit hole. I think uh, I think men light on Hitchens could use a dose of Vidal." Okay, I think I get the gist of that. Uh, and of course, that touches on the little mini feud that the two of them had uh, in public, of course, in letters columns for a while there. Hitchens, for a while there, wanted to be the Dauphin. He wanted Vidal's imprimatur as his intellectual successor on the book chat horizon or whatever it is, and it got pretty ugly. I wrote about it. I wrote about it at the time when it was unfolding in the letters columns of various magazines, and thought it was all tawdry and distasteful. That Hitchens Hitchens comes off really badly in that. I don't know that it's commemorized. I don't know actually that those writings that I did are findable anymore. They were done at enormous length on my old literary blog, Steve Reads, and I don't know how findable that blog is. I used to have a feature on Steve Reads called In the Penny Press, where I talked about stuff in magazines or journals, book reviews, anything that was interesting along those lines, feuds in letter columns, interesting articles or articles that missed the mark or whatnot. And when Hitchens started belly aching about not being Gore Vidal's chosen successor, I latched right onto it. I thought it was incredibly petty behavior. Of course, it doesn't it doesn't quite mean so much if the man you want to give you your intellectual laurels is praising Timothy McVeigh, praising a mad bomber. Then it doesn't quite mean so much. Baby, what's the matter? Oh, look at baby. She's oh, what's the matter, baby? Huh? Look at that side eye. Goodness gracious. Oh. We had a wonderful long walk out in the woods, just delightful. Uh, for me, it wasn't quite so delightful for my little city girl. She's not a lot fond of the woods. I keep trying, but it doesn't work. And she's going on 7 years old now, so it's if it hasn't worked by now, it's not going to work. So I will probably desist, especially winter walks in the woods. There's really probably no reason for that. Anyway, view from the bar is here. I found one of your Hitchens responses published in the Atlantic. It's still online in the letters page somewhere. Well, the Atlantic letters, yeah, the Atlantic letters, sure. Um, but I also wrote an enormous amount about him on Steve Reads, and I don't know how findable any of that is. It was my first Atlantic letter about him that was published that got his attention and led to what everything else that followed. Well, if you're gonna be lazy and bloated in the pages of one of my favorite magazines and take a cheap shot at President Kennedy, you had better hit the mark. If you don't, well, so anyway, uh, Michael Shegda. I don't think I know that name. Hey, Steve, I discovered your channel a few weeks ago while searching for videos on Penguin Classics. I just wanted to say thank you for your amazing content and genuine intellectual honesty. Well, isn't that nice of you? Well, welcome. Welcome to the channel. You're reaching me just at the end of the year. Blue Star Galaxy says, any fun plans for Christmas this year? I'm going to have a blast. I don't know about you. What are all the rest of you going to do at Christmas time? The Bean and I aren't going anywhere. We aren't traveling at all, but it's still going to be an enormous amount of fun. So it'll be probably very quiet. This neighborhood lately in 2023, it has really shown a propensity for emptying out completely at the holidays. So probably that will happen. And then I can't say that I'll be really upset about that if it does. And there won't be any winter weather, which is weird and an added benefit. There's not going to snow in Boston this year. It's barely going to get cold. There isn't going to be any sleet or ice or anything like that. There isn't going to be a killing frost at all this winter in Boston. So sure, it's going to be the Christmas and New Year's holiday, but the sidewalks aren't going to be a nightmare. The mornings aren't going to be painful. There's not going to be no need to pay anybody to shovel. It's kind of weird. Uh, Grix is back. What did you think of My Tender Matador? And what about the new book by Fernando Melchor? I don't know either one of those. Gandhi Angles, thoughts on Ranulph Fiennes' new book on Lawrence of Arabia? I haven't seen it. Why? I'm I'm striking out all over here. But then again, that partly that's understandable because I'm about to check out myself. So I'm these books that I was showing you, the new reprint of Will Self, the new paperback reprint of this Vietnam history, and especially this big Dante book, uh, are among the last new releases that I will read in 2023. So uh, So I'm not knowing any of the rest of these things. The Lawrence of Arabia book I should probably read, but I don't know if it's out in America. I certainly missed it if it was. Gandhi Angles says the weather has been amazing, wonderful for long walks. It has been amazing. It has been wonderful for long walks. It is 40 degrees Fahrenheit warmer than it should be. And the mainstream meteorology press is lying about that. I just the other day saw I don't know why I ever looked at it. Saw one of those bubble-headed bleach blondes in front of a green screen in the studio say, "Well, winter doesn't really get started until February in New England." So none of this is unusual. The fact that you're walking around in your shirt sleeves in mid-December is none of this is really unusual. This is normal. There's nothing wrong with this. Winter doesn't really start until February. No, no, no. I don't know how young you are, but no, winter doesn't just start in February in Boston. Not at all. There are gigantic warehouses out on I-95 that house salt, road salt, gigantic mountains of road salt. None of it's going to be needed. Whole fleets of snowplows that are on standby and paid freelance wages by the city. That whole budget is not going to be used, not only this year or last year or the year before that, but ever again. It's not just a question of you just wait for February and you might get some sleet. It's just not going to happen. Uh, but anyway, it is great for long walks. Grix, I love how silent and empty the countryside gets during Christmas. Most people tend to gravitate towards cities and the indoor at this time of year. Yeah, it does. I would. Bean, what is the matter? Why don't you go up on your couch? Huh? Why don't you go up there? There you go. uh, the woods were very quiet today, but we hacked out into the back of beyond today, and I kept hoping that we were going to meet our coyotes. We haven't seen coyotes in this winter so far. There's a mated pair of coyotes in the woods, and we've encountered them before, but not this time. But we hacked out into the back of beyond, and of course, once you leave the paths and the sort of tended area of there's a park that's on the verge of actual woods and wooded hills. And if you stay in the park's intended areas, you will meet people. Once we left those, there was no doubt, there was no danger of it. Uh, let's see here. Omen Fazeli, what would you recommend to someone who loved Don Quixote? I need to know why you love Don Quixote and what you loved about it. And even then, I'd still need to know more about what you've read and liked. Uh, Gandhi Angle says it's been released. It's being released on January 3rd. Uh, is this the Lawrence of Arabia book? Okay, well, if it's and next year, I haven't got it yet. Jenny Parks, I intend to do as little as possible when not working and just read and ignore the world. 2023 will be the end of my current job and the new one in 2024. Good Lord, you're starting a new job? Wow. Sound very calm about it. That's amazing. Mind Doc. Hi, Steve. What do you think? Oh, wait, where'd you go? You disappeared. What do you think of writing exercises? Do you approve of them or do you believe in just writing? I've had people who needed writing exercises. They did a lot of good for them. I assigned them writing exercises and it helped a lot. I obviously prefer just writing. Just the best exercise, the best way to learn how to write, the only real effective way to learn how to write is to write. And just write and just write and make your own mistakes, make them organically and keep going. Learn and adapt and keep going. But writing exercises work, I guess. There's certainly you can't do without them if you're teaching writing in a classroom setting. I needed them often. Gandhi Angle says correction January 2nd. Okay, is this still the Lawrence of Arabia book? I'll take your word for it. I haven't got a copy. I haven't got an advanced copy. I haven't got a finished copy. Alex Blair, the weather is enjoyable here in Florida, although you'd probably advise me to leave as soon as possible. Well, I do generally advise that. Yes, it doesn't matter. You have paperwork to get through, and you have your affairs to put in order, and you've got just about exactly a calendar year to do that. But it'd be, I'm very happy to walk around in my shirt sleeves, to not be pained or uncomfortable walking out with the bean. But it still does bother me, of course, that Boston doesn't get winter anymore. That's bad because that means that Vermont and Maine will be next. That means that this is just going to Vermont and Maine and Minnesota and whatnot are going to start having 3 seasons instead of 4 too, just like we do now. And that's not good because the more that entrenches in the upper regions of the temperature, the more it entrenches in the lower regions as well. The more mild the winter gets, the worse the summers will be. So when I'm walking Frida I wore Frida in my short sleeves today on December 16th in Boston, and I've barely needed to put a jacket on at all this year. Uh, so naturally, when I'm walking around there, I'm thinking, "Gee, isn't this great?" But I'm also thinking how vulnerable she is to the heat and how that's probably what that means. Anyway, Tolstoy 111. Do you like Thomas Keneally? I do. I don't like him as much as his fans do. I often wonder what I'm missing there. Nothing of his has ever ignited for me at all. Even he wrote one book that seemed like it was tailor made for me. It still didn't work. Uh, Grick says, "Sure, you have read Hurricane Season by Fernando Melchor. Sam Sachs reviewed it. I believe the new book was called Paradise. I'm not recommending it. Just wondering. It's not ringing a bell. But then again, it might not ring a bell this late in the year." Krista, shamelessly, I was out in my shorts today and yesterday. Well, I don't wear shorts, but I I know the feeling. I know the feeling, and I absolutely should not know the feeling. In Boston on December 16th, I should not know the feeling. It should be a distant memory. I should be yearning for spring. Instead, we are just going to have spring. I thought it was hilarious. The mainstream weather people saying, we got this massive storm coming on Sunday, Sunday into Monday, massive storm. I looked at the actual data. We're going to get a warm rain Sunday into Monday. It might not rain at all. It might miss Boston completely. But if it does, it's going to be a warm, intermittent spring rain. It's not going to be downpours, no local flooding, no nothing like that. And the same meteorologists were saying, and on the back end of that, the cold sweeps in. I looked at the figures. We're going to go from mid 60s Fahrenheit to high 50s Fahrenheit. That's a drop of 6 degrees. I think I can probably weather that. I'm pretty sure that the timbers and concrete of the building won't shatter at such a drop in temperature. It's ridiculous. It's not going to get anywhere close to freezing. Uh, anyway, Leo Percara, uh, where are you? Where are you? Oh my God, you disappeared. There we go. Uh, I absolutely am loving your list, Steve. I already bought some books. They have never failed since I started watching your channel in 2018. And the lists go back a long way. They go back a lot longer than my YouTube channel. That's for sure. Uh, and the final list, the best nonfiction of 2023 went up today. So that's it. That's it for this year. Gandhi Angle says, I believe Kotkin's third volume on Stalin is due out in 2024. Wow, that's something. D. Hurd, in the 50s and 60s in Western New England, we were skating in the backyard pond by Thanksgiving most years, except that the weather forecasters in the mainstream, the bubble-headed bleach blondes, are just matter-of-factly saying, no, that never happened. No. Killing frost as early as November? Oh, please. No, that never happened. We often romanticize these things, but winter really doesn't start in New England until February. Absolute nonsense. Absolute nonsense. But Connor says, I've been watching the HBO Angels in America, and I am not liking it much. I think it is convincing me that the play is one of those few unadaptable works. No, you're incorrect. The HBO adaptation is actually very, very good. But Angels in America is adaptable. Somebody else could do it the same way, but they don't need to, because the adaptation for HBO is actually very good. Uh, Gandhi Angle says, do you think if Robert Caro does not complete his final volume on LBJ, it will be finished by another author? There's a substantial amount of money involved, so I mean, he's not going to finish it. So, but there's a financial windfall for the publisher for it to be finished, the box sets, the fanfare, and whatnot. So yeah, I'd be willing to bet that Caro has already made arrangements for whoever will finish the work when he finally, dies denying that he won't finish it. Greg says, why don't you like D.H. Lawrence? He stinks. Main reason. Tolstoy 111, let us note the occasion. Mark Cavendish died 350 years ago today, and Ford Maddox Ford was born 150 years ago tomorrow. Yeah, those are occasions to note. Definitely. Dylan Matthias, I am not very old. There was a few winters in my youth where the first snow was on Halloween. Many's the time when you certainly had to bundle up under your costume on Halloween, but many's the time when there was at least a dusting of snow. It was 70 on Halloween this year. The strange weather in New England of late has been less strange than everyone acting as if it's normal. It's the weird thing. That's one of the weirdest parts of it is people just looking at it and saying, "Oh, winter doesn't really start in Boston until February." No, no. In November and certainly in December, we have one snowstorm after another, and that's not happening. And that's never going to happen again. So that's that is not normal at all. That is, I know you don't want to alarm your viewers, but that is not in any way normal. Uh, Leo Picard, do you like fantasy books that are Dungeons and Dragons campaigns like the R.A.S. Salvatore series? Well, I never really noticed that element of the Salvatore books that I've read. I haven't read anywhere near as much of him as maybe to tell. But there is a subgenre, a kind of fantasy novel now. What's it called? The lit RPG. They call themselves that in their listings. I get emails from publicists all the time saying, "Do you want this?" And I never know quite how to answer. I don't play any board games or Dungeons and Dragons type campaigns. I don't know if I need to do that in order to understand the books. They have some very striking cover art, but I never know whether or not to try them or whether or not they'd make any sense to me. Jenny Parks says, "I miss decent winters here. We have fun names for all the gritters." Gritters. Uh, I don't know what a gritter is, but I miss. I never thought I'd say it, but I miss the winters here too. Of course, the pragmatic part of me is saying, you know, I don't want walks to be hard on Frida. I don't want them to be uncomfortable for her. She has never experienced snow that has actually been taller than she is. She isn't aware that that can happen. And I'm not sure that I would want to go through that. But even so, when I look past the pragmatics, it's weird to think that it's not just a question of luck, that it's just not going to happen. The world has changed. Um, let's see here. Gandhi Angle says, "Jumped in late. Did you already discuss or care to discuss Mayor Wu's stance on the Christmas party scandal?" I haven't discussed Mayor Wu at all. I don't discuss Mayor Wu. I'm happy to live in a free state. If we falter a little in our mayors or our governors, that doesn't seem to be changing the fact that Massachusetts is a free state. That's going to mean a lot in very little time. That's going to mean a lot. Uh, Blue Star Galaxy. I've been going on daily walks. It's very beautiful in North Carolina. I always make an effort to pet a very friendly Greater Pyrenees dog that comes running down the fence along my route. Well, I would too. I would too. I get the hairy eyeball from Frida. She's very. A number of you have pointed out she's very good at side eye. She is very good at side eye. There we go. We're talking about you. She doesn't like it when I pet other dogs. She doesn't. She won't stop it, but she doesn't like it. Uh, and I lavishly petted another dog today, not on the walk in the woods. 'Cause we didn't encounter anybody there. I would have happily face smooched the coyotes if we'd encountered them, but we didn't. But earlier in the day, we did encounter a dog, and uh, Frida was all stiff and officious around him. But I told him, just ignore her. I want to face smooch with you, and it was wonderful. uh, Lit Fic Reader. Hi, Steve. Have you bought the Letters of Seamus Heaney yet? No, no, I haven't. No, I'm not going to buy it. Hannah at Hannah's Books made a very good point, which is that it could easily get an American publication by Harvard University Press. If that happens, I'll get it. So I won't need to buy it. Uh, Gandhi Angle says, "Can you recommend a biography on Kissinger?" Neil Ferguson's, but I found it fawning. Oh, the Ferguson book. Oh my God. It was awful. I roasted it. I roasted it when I reviewed it. Um, but no, I don't. I don't know of a good biography of Kissinger. They all buy his PR to one extent or another. They all do that I've seen, except for the angry Watergate era screeds, and they aren't good history. So, Mind Doc says, "What is your favorite Christmas movie?" The Lion in Winter. What shall we hang? The holly or each other? Gandhi Angles. I meant to say I attempted to read Ferguson's book, but found it too fawning. Not sure if he was the official biographer. Well, if he wasn't, he certainly did a convincing imitation of it. That book was just disgusting. Just disgusting. Uh, Jenny Park says, "Gritter spread the grit for roads. Some of the names are Nitty Gritty, License to Chill, Gangsta Granny Gritter, Sir Salter Scott, and Spready Mercury." Well, they're not going to need them anymore. They don't have a job anymore. I used to know a freelance snowplow operator who was on call 24 hours a day. If the city needed him, he would be on call for that. And he could make very good side money in a typical winter in Boston. And that is a distant memory now. I don't think he even has the plow attachment anymore. I don't think he does anymore. He's never going to need it. Uh, Hannah's Books is here. Have you any contacts at Harvard University Press where you can make suggestions about picking up the Heaney? I have contacts at Harvard University Press, but they don't need input from me. I'm sure that your suggestion was right. I'm sure that they almost certainly will already be the house that's doing it. I just I didn't see it in any of their advance notices or catalogs, but that doesn't mean that they won't do it and just slip it in there. Ed Wiley says, "Die Hard is a Christmas movie, true or false?" Oh, it certainly is. Of course it is. It's even got a resurrection. Gandhi Angles, did you happen to catch Bill Maher's show last night, particularly his ending comments on the Israel-Palestinian conflict? I did not. I was reading, and I'm going to be reading tonight as well. I'm going to unplug very soon. Reading by the river. Hello from the Pacific Northwest. Good Lord, the Pacific Northwest. Bigfoot country, Sasquatch country. I miss winter. I grew up in the Hudson River Valley near West Point, and lived down East Maine for years. I miss winter. Well, you could be in those places now. You still wouldn't be getting winter. Not anything like what I'm sure you remember. Mind Doc says, "Do you have a favorite Christmas Carol film adaptation?" The Muppets, of course. Of course, it's the Muppets. Does anybody answer that any differently? No, it's the Muppets. I saw a great meme on social media just today. Uh, a still from the Michael Caine Muppets Christmas Carol, and a still from the Tim Curry Muppets Treasure Island. And the line was that the two actors honored the process in their own individual way. Michael Caine took it seriously and treated all the Muppets as fellow actors, and Tim Curry took it seriously by treating all the Muppets as fellow Muppets. It was just I couldn't put it any better myself. Uh, let's see here. Auntie Gaia, A Christmas Story is the best Christmas movie, despite the racist parts. Okay. Dylan Matthias, since I've gone down the Vidal rabbit hole, I've been tempted to read his fiction. Is there a particular book of his that's best to start with? I'd start with Burr. Uh, Burr will pretty quickly tell you whether or not you want to read his fiction or not. I mean, that's if you like what he's doing in Burr, then you've got a lot of other novels to read. Uh, Jenny Park says, after reading Devolution, I don't think I want to meet Sasquatch anymore. Well, but Devolution was meant to scare you, and actually, you wouldn't want to meet if Sasquatch were actually a, a natural being. You wouldn't want to meet it in a wild setting. But then again, it wouldn't act anything like what Bigfoot fans on YouTube and off claim that it does. It wouldn't. It would act in a very different way. It would act threatened. It would act territorial. It would act aggressive. It wouldn't just look and walk away. That's the thing. The famous Patterson Gimlin film of a Sasquatch in the Pacific Northwest just walking calmly past the camera. That's the number one thing that works against it as believable is that this animal would not do that. I mean, according to Patterson and Gimlin, one of them was filming, in other words, pointing an object at this animal at relatively point blank range that it had never seen before, while the other one was covering the whole process with a rifle on horseback. That is extremely threatening. The animal would act that way. The animal would act that way. It was an easy striding distance from the guy filming. It would have attacked unless it somehow knew what was going on. And the only animal that would know what's going on would be a man in a monkey suit. But anyway, anyway, uh, Tolstoy 111 says Die Hard is about an outnumbered force with limited resources that reclaims a tower that was taken by a foreign invader. It's a Hanukkah film. Anti-Gaia says Burr by Vidal is awesome. All right, well, there you know, okay, that you've got a fan of Burr here. Gandhi Angle says, "How about a biography recommendation for Dickens?" Peter Ackroyd. Yeah, Peter Ackroyd. Aaron Facer's here. Speaking of important birthdays, I'm pretty sure Jane Austen just turned 248. I never understood that people who commemorate the birthdays of long dead authors. I've never understood that. I guess the TLS makes it a running joke out of how jobbing hack authors do that, it just to give themselves an easy handle for writing a piece for $100. Mindoc says, I like the Muppets one, but my favorite is the 1984 George C. Scott one. Ugh, not me. I'm a big fan of George C. Scott, but I don't, just doesn't work at all in that for me. Kevin J. N. Uh, I'm reading Rita Dove's anthology of poetry printed by Penguin. Just look to get it for my Kindle, and I'm stuck reading it physically. I forgot some books just don't EPUB. Yeah, some of them don't. It's weird. I wish it weren't so, but Hannah seconds Burr. Okay, I did not know that you liked Burr. Jenny Park says Lord of the Rings is my Christmas movie. They leave Rivendell on 25th, so I count it. I suppose it's well worth watching anyway. That they're worth watching at any time. Grix is here. I don't know that I ever thanked you for recommending Pilgrim to Tinker Creek, but it has become one of my favorite books of all time. So thank you so much. What other Annie Dillard do you recommend? Well, she's the type of writer that will always please. That doesn't doesn't really do anything wrong in any of her books. I think it reaches a pitch with that book, but her book on the writing life is really good as well. Uh, Gandhi Angle says my favorite is Scrooge with Albert Finney. Yes, yes. Well, that I have a soft spot there as well for that one, but not as much as the Muppet movie. Uh, Dylan Matthias says, speaking of Christmas Carol, have you ever seen the great production they do up at the North Shore Music Theater? No, no, I have not. Tolstoy 111 round number anniversaries are an easy way to have a shared commemoration. Yes, I suppose. I suppose. Auntie Gaia says the Alistair Sim Scrooge is my favorite. I was amazed. I was amazed that it took so long for that to come up. I always know when I have a Steve stream, I'm going to have at least a few film snobs, and they immediately say the Alistair Sim version, but it took a while. It took a while. We got Albert Finney first before we got Alistair Sim. Leo Bricara, I finally watched The Way of the Gun and loved it. Made me think that it is a movie that Tarantino could never make, but would want to. Yeah, The Way of the Gun is a serious Quentin Tarantino movie. A Quentin Tarantino movie that's made by someone who's not dumb. Has the same film sensibilities, the same pacing, same ability to get the same kinds of performances out of actors that you didn't think could give them, but who isn't dumb, who isn't himself an imbecile. It's a weird, almost intangible difference, but boy, oh boy, do you see it when you line it up back to back. You really see the difference. Uh, really underscores it. I'm glad that you liked it. I'm due for a rewatch myself. Uh, what a bleak ending. Good lord. Uh, Wilson Shugart is here. Good Lord. Oh, evening all. How are we tormenting Steve tonight? Well, the tormenting hadn't started, but now that you're here. Gandhi Angles, I just heard Ken Burns is working on a documentary series about the American Revolution. Yeah, we shall see. We shall see. Uh, I don't trust it. Not that I don't trust the rumor. I trust the rumor. I just don't trust the end production. The American Revolution was not conducted by BIPOC lesbian women. It simply was not. It simply was not. It was not conducted by them. They were not the secret to any military victory. It was done, started, commenced, argued on both sides, idealized on both sides, won and lost by white men. So I don't know how you're going to do that. I don't know how Ken Burns would be able to do that. I'm so accustomed now to ideological capture and the things that I'm looking at that I tend not to bother. I tend not to bother. So I don't know. He's a big name. He might be able to get away with it, but I have a feeling that the American Revolution that I'm going to see from him is going to be the same thing as that Cleopatra show. Cleopatra is a black woman. I, well, we shall see. I know I'm long past thinking about it. Tolstoy 111 says the Alistair Sim Scrooge is pitch perfect. Even the scene they added were fully Dickensian. Yes, yes, indeed, pitch perfect. Nick Piccarilli, if there's a Muppets version, then that is always the answer. There is indeed a Muppets version of A Christmas Carol. Jenny Parks, I enjoyed the Bill Murray Scrooge. Still makes me smile today. There are parts of it that definitely make me smile. Definitely. There are parts of that movie that are hilarious. Dylan Mathias says, "An American Christmas Carol is a fun take on it if you like Henry Winkler, that is." Well, who doesn't like Henry Winkler? Book Counts and Books is here. Hello, just got here. I was very happy to see you crown Prince Harry's Spare worst nonfiction of the year. What a terrible, heartless, shameless memoir. I agree. I could have gone on at great length. I could have written about, for the worst nonfiction, I could have gone on to 2,000 words for each book. And it would have been easy to do it with Prince Harry, easier than most of them. The ones that would have got the most length out of me if I weren't being brief were the two books that say that shooting animals is the best method of conservation. I'm so sick of seeing that as an argument. That argument has been made for 150 years. I'm so sick of seeing it that I it could have gone a great length about that. It could have gone a great length about. I didn't even mention about Spare that there's nothing in it that's true. It's a screed of lies in addition to being so much hypocrisy. Um, Anti Gaia says Tarantino seems very awkward socially as well. I think he's legit crazy. No, I don't. I don't. We are accustomed to deferring all judgments about insanity by saying, I'm not a clinical expert, but I am a lifelong expert on stupid. You don't need a degree for stupid. He's an idiot. He's been able to hide that fact, but he's an idiot, and he hides it by some clever filmmaking. It's as much as I'll say. It's as much as I'll give him is clever. And the point that was made earlier is take a movie that is a Quentin Tarantino movie, only he's not the one directing it. Way of the Gun is a perfect example. And you will see what someone who's not an idiot, who still has those sensibilities, can do with the movie. And it's just incontestably better. Anyway, anyway, Gandhi Angle says, "Did you watch his documentary series on the American buffalo?" I did not. Jenny Parks, what did you think of Britney Spears one? Everyone seems to love it. I didn't love it. I thought it was boring. To me, the Britney Spears, the big book by Britney Spears was what I was expecting the Barbara Streisand book to be. The sanded down product of vetted lawyers, and the Streisand book is definitely not that. What a weird book. I'm still processing what on earth did I read there. Uh, Anti Guy says, "God help us if Meghan Markle writes a book. She's been contracted already. I thought I read in Publishers Weekly. Didn't I do that? Did I read that already?" Because Prince Harry's book made more money than any work of nonfiction that's ever been published, and she wants a piece of that. It's a very, very competitive household, and he's not allowed to out earn her. So I feel certain that she has a book in the works. Uh, Gandhi Angle says, "I bailed on David Mamet's new book on Hollywood. Found his interview with Bill Maher interested, but but the writing, in my opinion, is a self-indulgent train wreck." Now, I didn't even look at it. I don't think. Reading by the River says our family viewing of the Muppets Christmas Carol is coming up next week. Third generation of fans will be there. Wow, big big boisterous fun family gathering. How wonderful! How wonderful that! I always say that always strikes me as wonderful theoretically. The only time I've ever actually experienced that, the closest that I came, was the Christmas that the Bean and I spent up in Vermont with Mark Richardson and his family. Grix says, "I saw Herman Hesse in your 2023 best of year list. Do you have a favorite book of his?" Uh, you're right. Probably Magister Ludi. But I would hope for new translations of everything of his into English. It's long overdue. Uh, Colin says, "What do you think of the definitive account of Hiroshima and Nagasaki?" There's a book. Well, actually, there are two. One of them is called Hiroshima and Nagasaki, is it not? I want to say the author's name is Ham, Ham, but I'm not remembering that. And I don't want to bounce myself out of the stream to find out. There is a really good account. I don't know about definitive, but there's a really good account that I thought was called Hiroshima and Nagasaki. I could be wrong about that. I'll have to look that up. Street Medic. Sorry, I overslept, and now my family is forcing me to see Wonka. You- this kid is inevitable. It's not Thanos growling that, with the glove of destiny on his hand. It's Timothy Chalamet is inevitable. Hollywood is determined that there's nothing he can't do, that he can sing, that he can dance. He most certainly cannot do either, that he can act. He can't do that. They're just determined that he is inevitable. He is the biggest thing in Hollywood. uh, Freeman says the Ella Fitzgerald biography was great. Thanks for the recommendation. Oh, very good. Uh, Andrew Russell says Paul Ham wrote it. See, okay, I was right. Great. Monet Doyle says I just started a Harlequin intrigue book. It's a new one. It's a new intrigue. Colin says, will you ever release an essential dinosaur literature list? I have no idea. I thought I did a dinosaur starter kit. No, maybe not. Well, it's not going to happen this year, so I have no idea. Andrew Russell, and yes, it's called Hiroshima Nagasaki. Okay, no, no ampersand, no and, just Hiroshima and Nagasaki. I'm pretty sure that I wrote about it. Didn't I? Didn't I review that book? If you go to Google and type in Steve Donahue, Paul Ham, do you get that? Does it come up? Tolstoy 111. I accidentally ran into. Um, oh no, wait. Where did you go? Oh no, wait. That disappeared. Andrew Russell says, and yes, it is called Hiroshima Nagasaki. Street Medic says, my daughter is even dressed like Willy Wonka. Good luck. Good luck getting through the movie. Omid Fazeli says, the best 2024 nonfiction will be Cormac McCarthy's biography written by Steve Donahue. Now, there is a biography in the works. I don't think it's going to see print in 2024, but it won't be by me. Tolstoy 111, I actually ran into the booktube channel called Witch Cindy. Good Lord, it's exactly the sort of thing you mock. Yeah, I've had a number of encounters with booktube channels that have been going out of their way to be exactly the kind of thing I mock. I watched at the urging of a couple of you sending me links. I watched the latest Ben McAvoy video, and I admit I was laughing the whole time. I was laughing through the whole thing. I I look at the comments fields always in videos of this type. I look at the comments fields. I read the room, as the blue-haired activists on Twitter say. I read the room, so I know that this kid is having a positive effect on lots and lots of people. But good God, what a fraud! What a self-evident snake oil fraud! I mean, it's not even hard to discern. It's right there on the surface. I just don't. It's, but I'm not familiar with Witch Cindy, and now I'm not sure I want to be. MindDoc says, which story needs Muppet adaptation the most? Dune, Henry Kissinger biopic, something else? Wow, Dune would be terrific. Absolutely, that would be terrific. I think Star Wars more than anything else. Star Wars. Uh, Michael Lombardo, hello. Did you review the recent James Holland book about Italy? No, I did not. Aaron Reed, a book says, just saw your historical fiction list. I didn't know A.K. Blakemore had a new book. Did you like her Manning Tree Witches book? No, I did not. Andrew Russell uh, is responding to my doc. Dylan Mathias says the Muppets feel at home in the Victorian era. Maybe a Muppets Jekyll and Hyde. Tolstoy 111 says at least McAvoy is essentially good-hearted and loves what he talks about. I did not get that impression at all. Not at all. The Cindy person I mentioned does videos about stuff like Colleen Hoover's ableism. Oh my god! Oh my god! Well, and I can definitely give those myths with a clear conscience. Street Medic. Oh well, since this is a book channel, I might as well say I'm reading the Bill of Rights by Irving Brandt, and even though it's old, he was amazingly prophetic of our time. Anti-Gaia says, Steve, do you recommend Watergate Girl by Jill Winebanks? Don't I have a review of it? I thought I reviewed it. Didn't I review it for the Boston Globe? I do recommend it. Sure. Andrew Russell, I'm currently reading The Day of Battle, Rick Atkinson's book about World War II, U.S. forces in Italy. Very engrossing stuff. I agree. I don't actually need. Well, you're telling the rest of the chat what it is. You're not telling me what it is. He's terrific, and that whole trilogy is just terrific. Andrew McDonald says Patrick DeWitt is coming to Melbourne. Is he worth reading? Sure. Yeah, he is. The Librarianist almost made the list this year. Leo Picard, after seeing that video of Matt Punchable Face fantasy reviews where he asked 70 plus fantasy booktubers to recommend books and you weren't there, made me realize that they must hate you. Yeah, I don't, we don't need to dwell on it. I don't need to dwell on it. But there have been enough videos like that from enough quarters, uh, to make me know that this is not my imagination. This is not just a paranoid fantasy. There is I'm not going to say that, a backroom discussion, but there is a very hard and fast rule out there, whether it's been stated or not. There's a rule: stay away from him, or you're not one of us. Stay away from him, or you're doing it wrong. I've seen enough now in enough quarters of booktube to know that right that Matt's fantasy reviews, where the host of the channel and all of the channels that he gathered together, all compounded, have not read as much fantasy as I have alone. And my channel is a sufficient size for to be noticed. My viewers are sufficiently loyal to be noticed. Whether it's that or booktubers slowly but surely doing little chat videos with a whole bunch of guest stars and making sure the one exception is me, that they will never be me, never, and on and on and on. I've seen enough of these things in enough quarters of booktube to know that this is not an accident, and that it's not a group of people. It's me specifically. So much for the effing booktube community. So much for that, for the platitudes that we all mouth to each other whenever they come up. I don't think any other booktuber is quite. There's very much the impression of singling me out, and I don't I won't hide the fact that earlier this year that really bothered me. I gave that a lot of thought during the course of 2023. I'm not thinking about it now, but it gave me a lot of thought earlier in the year. Uh, anyway, sorry for the digression. Tolstoy 111. My big problem with Ben McAvoy is that he charges like $30 on Patreon for his discussions. There are so many problems. Oh my god, the video, the link that a number of you sent it to me, the one where he was talking about the the life changing book club picks of 2024. Oh my god. To say nothing of anything else, we can at least say that his view of what reading and literature is the exact opposite of anything you will get on this channel. Anything. He is describing a religion, a high, holy religion with altars way up above where you're standing in the pit. You can't approach very high on the steps to that altar, and at the top of that altar, there's a priest in robes, and it's him. You will never be that priest, but he's there. And if you want intercession from him, well, you can pay him. The exact opposite of the attitude that I repeated episode after episode on the Western Canon Starter Kit. And yet it appeals to people. I think because so many people associate reading with school, with an explicit hierarchy, with the absence of parity. Oh, just revolting. Oh my God. Uh, Andrew Russell's responding to Tolstoy 111. Street Medic says, I'm not paying anyone anything on Patreon just to disagree with them. Tolstoy 111 responding to Andrew Russell. Uh, let's see here. MTNGRL 585. Prince Harry's sales were inflated. If one bought one, they got two free second copies, so it counted as two sales. They also counted sales as books sent to the stores versus actual sales. But there were also metrics of the sales. The books sold phenomenally well. Individually, with people paying money for it, it sold phenomenally well. That wasn't an illusion. Faisal says, I really like Dostoevsky's books. Can you please recommend writers who are similar to him? The other great Russians. Either he was influenced by them or or he influenced them. The other great Russians will be close enough. Street Medic, I will buy some Steve merch, though image his face plastered on a trivial shirt. Steve merch. Steve merch would be fun. Jenny Parks, I'm a proud member of the Cult of Steve. Donna Huguenot forever. Well, I don't know. I don't know about a Cult of Steve, but anybody who's familiar with the way I deal with books and literature, and the rest of you, the way I deal with you on this channel, any of you are going to go to Ben McAvoy's channel and just laugh. You're just going to laugh. That gated community idea of literature that, you know, these these works, they change you. They are sublime and deep, and we, for money, will walk you through how. Can you imagine how much crap you'd all give me if I started talking that way? I know the works of literature that he's talking about 100,000 times better than he does. Can you imagine if I started talking that way, how ridiculous that would be? You'd never let me hear the end of it, and you shouldn't. It's just anyway. Anyway, uh, Connor says McAvoy certainly loves something, not books, but something. He loves money. He loves money. He wouldn't do it if there weren't money involved. Tolstoy 111, Steve, you should set up an expensive Patreon for Ulysses and fill the paid content with vitriol. Street Medic Donahue Donuts has a catchy ring to it. Uh, uh, I'm just going to call you Mountain Girl. I think that's what that's short for. Harry and Meghan's Netflix show was the 200th viewed show. It rated after Peppa the Pig animation. Jenny Parks reminds me of my favorite line in Jurassic Park 3. He sounded like he was kind of high on himself. Everything about him, everything about the way he approaches books and talking about books and talking to people about books is it is pitch perfect demonstration of what I have hated about the way people talk about books my whole life. It's almost like it was tailor made to be the opposite of me. Of course, it wasn't. He doesn't know that I exist. He's not. He is not in the same category as all the booktube channels I mentioned that very much do know I exist and are very pointedly avoiding me. Very pointedly don't want to include me in anything collective that they're doing. No roundup videos, no interview series, no nothing like that. They very pointedly want to exclude me from that. I'm not saying that he's that way. He doesn't know that I exist. But oh my God, it's like he is tailor made to be my opposite. Andrew Russell, when are you writing your autobiography, Steve? You can have a glossary at the back of all the books you've read, head off any have you read questions. Well, it won't be this year. Andy Gaia says the way McAvoy says literature bugs me. It was if I was a woman, I'd stay 50 feet away. He says it as if it's a prayer. He treats it as if it's a church. And if there's a church, there's a priesthood. And you're not in it. And he is. Which is why you should pay him tithes. You should pay him for his guidance. Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. I confess, when I watched that video of his about his book club suggestion, these will change your lives. When I saw that video, I was really tempted in a snotty way to announce that I would be talking about the exact same books for free on my channel, at the exact same length, at the exact same schedule, at the exact same time, for free. And I've taught them in classes and I've read them in the original, most of them, and I know them a lot better than he does. So where do you want to spend your money? But of course, what's the matter, baby? What's up? Huh? What's the matter? You sucking your dentures? You want to come down here? There you go. Oh, there's a little Frida yoga for you. Oh, oh, stop. There you go. Uh, anyway, let's see here. Street Medic says, sorry, autocorrect is going crazy and I'm not interested enough to care. That's all right. We're wrapping up soon anyway. Andrew Russell, Ben McAvoy just needs a pipe and a tweed jacket with leather elbow patches to complete the facade. Our Wallren's already halfway there. I know. There's a whole subculture that of these. I know they're out there. I've known they're out there. It's just that video announcing the 2024 book club picks that you can pay through the nose to hear him recite short form. It got to me. It really did. A view from the bar. Oh, did you get around to that? Is typos here? That bizarre Joyce Carol Oates piece in the New Yorker a few weeks ago. What'd you make of it? I didn't get around to it. Connor, aside from all the deeper issues, McAvoy is so boring. Yes, he is. He is so boring. He treats these things as liturgy. How many times have you ever been interested in a rote liturgy if you've been in church in a pew? I was so tempted to just take his rundown of these books and talk about them myself and bill it that way. Do you want to go to church where you're not allowed to raise your hand and the priest will tell you what you think of these things and you'll pay through the nose for it? Or do you want to have a lively discussion about these things for free? I was so tempted to do that. Uh, View from the Mars bag. Also, if you hit 25K subs, can you give me full access to your diaries and let me do your biography? I'm not going to hit 25K subs. uh, Tolstoy 111. Steve, do you like the Codex Cantina channel? Right, I do very much so. Yeah. Gandhi Angles, 120 pages into Streisand's biography, was put off at first by the excessive detail about her every thought, but there is a charm to the intimacy. Not sure it can sustain 966 pages. Well, even 120 pages in, you certainly know you are not in the hands of a ghostwriter, which is the most amazing thing in the world. You certainly know that you are not reading a sanded down, sanitized version of a star biography, ghostwritten by somebody else, which is amazing. By page 120, I was thinking, what the hell is going on here? And it just gets worse or better, depending on how you look at these things. Leo Percara, it's a shame that that fantasy community doesn't want you because they most certainly need you. The amount of nonsense that they read and praise is jarring sometimes. Well, you know, all props to Chatting with Nuts. He was willing to talk with me. He's willing to talk with me on camera. So it's not all of them. He was willing to do that, but that they are a perfect example. They have regular live streams. It's not just him. Plenty of channels have regular live streams, and you can see it. If you're looking for it, you can see it. There is an actual hard line. So there will be 10 comments appearing in the live stream, and the person running the live stream will read one, two, three. There's a comment from me. Just skips right over it. 5, 6, 7, 8. No comment, no discussion, nothing. Certainly no parenthetical mention on camera of, well, it's a Steve comment. We're not going to read that. No, it's just, I'm not there. I just, nope, I don't want anything. Nope, not him. Nope, not him. That's pointed. That is not an accident anymore. That was, unfortunately, the sad realization that I finally, after 6 years, came to in 2023 is that this is not an accident. This is perfectly pointed. This is about me. But anyway, anyway, let's see here. Grick says precisely is the people that elevated reading in that way that make me believe they don't read at all. My university is full of them. Universities are full of them, and that has to be the appeal of Ben McAvoy's channel. It has to be people who want that. It's that he can't be. He might be as phony as a $3 bill, but he can't fake his comments field. The comments field is full of actual enthusiasm, and it's a shame. Andrew Russell says Frida wants to interject in the McAvoy discussion. Grigg says it is insane how many people build their whole personality around being readers and never open a book, especially among the students of the humanities. Yes, indeed. Sounds like you're having the same kind of undergraduate experience that I did. MindDoc. Apparently, there are people out there who do custom Muppets. Somebody needs to create a Steve Muppet. I don't know what that would look like. Street Medic says the last biography I read was Peter the Great by Robert Massey, but my favorite was the Roosevelt Trilogy by Edmund Morris. So those are 4 really good volumes. Connor, and of course, just like the church, women are not allowed. Well, bless his little heart with that dreamy expression on his face, like he was talking about a religious experience. You are going to be transported by these works. All that B-roll footage of musty tomes and what. Oh God, just everything I hate about sharing or teaching literature and reading. Everything I hate about it. And one of the picks is The Tale of Genji. That was like the final straw. Jenny Parks, sorry to make you smile. Story to make you smile. I was dog sitting my best friend's dog and woke up at 3:30 in the morning to the dog staring at me, then licking me just to take her out for a walk 2 days in a row. Oh. Gandhi Angle says Yellowface was the worst fiction book I read this year. Jenny Parks says no pee or poop, just out for a walk. Okay. Well, I wasn't there, and it was a fun story. I'd be willing to bet there was something missing there, that you missed something. I'd be willing to bet that is true. Dogs don't just, well, anyway, it was a fun story. Omen Fazeli, how about Tristan Tristan and Classics channel. I'm not sure I know that. Now I'm not sure I want to. Dylan Mathias, I just looked up this Ben McAvoy guy. Who does he think he's fooling? If one buys into his pretentious idea of reading, why would one listen to a young man with no notable writing of his own write about it? Yeah, he doesn't write his own videos. I'd be willing to bet money on that. And this it's a money making enterprise, but oh my God, even if it weren't, go to his channel and listen for 10 minutes. If you don't think you're hearing the anti Steve, then I don't know what you're hearing, because it stuns me how point by point the opposite of the way I have always treated literature and the teaching of literature. It's point by point the opposite. Uh, Grix is back, and I know for a fact from experience that this absence of reading happens just the same in other universities. Oxford and Cambridge students are just as illiterate on average. I can certainly say this is true for Harvard and MIT. They don't know anything about the English majors in Harvard know only about uh, the School of Resentment on Twitter. They don't know anything about the books. They have no intention of it. They're insulted if you mention it. Jenny Park says, we listened to Steve and he's only 28. Tolstoy 111, McAvoy's early content is about how to get into college, and he did not talk like that on those early videos. Really? Oh, man. Street Medic, Jenny Parks, don't mention peeing or poopy in the presence of old people because now I have to go. Michael Lombardo, sorry to hear that you're being excluded from the community, Steve. My own theory is your hard stance on monetization makes some creators feel crass. I don't think it's monetization. I don't think that's it at all. I think it's pretty easy to tell what it is. And it's infuriating. Also deeply saddening. I mean, I'm not going to hide that fact. Obviously, it's deeply saddening as well. I got into booktube for the same reasons everybody else does, for the community. To know for sure, in 2023, I now know for sure that this is a conscious decision. It's not, my gut's telling me this, or all my scheduling is that, or whatever. It's a conscious decision, not him. I'll read this comment. I'll read that one. I'll read the next one. I'm going to skip over his. I'm going to read the one after that, then the one after that, then the one after that. But he, not him. Everybody else, but not him. But anyway, view from the bar. Pretty redundant to have a Steve Muppet when they already split Jim into two balcony guys. Split him into those two balcony guys. Mountain Girl. Yes, my internet name is Mountain Girl. Someone on another channel started posting under my real name, so I assumed an internet name. Follow Smoke says, just finished Piranesi. Did you read it? Yes, I read Piranesi. Back away from the donkey. Just dropped in. Hello, everyone. What have I missed? Anyone admit they're really possessed by space aliens yet? No, you haven't missed much. And we're leaving. We're wrapping this up anyway. Connor says the illiteracy is certainly here at Purdue. Yes, unfortunately, it's everywhere. Unfortunately, but to see it weaponized for money on Ben McAvoy's channel, that that really got to me. A couple of people sent me links to that one same video, and it really got to me. If I would rather die than talk to any of you that way. And you wouldn't let me get away with it. You wouldn't let me get away with it for a minute, talking to you in such an unbelievably condescending way, making books written by stupid cokeheads into these mystical experiences that will change your life and your finances and whatnot. Gandhi Angle says, looking forward to reading the upcoming biography of Zhang Lai by Chen Jian. Me too. Me too. JL, hello, Steve. What did you make of Auster's life and work of Stephen Crane? Oh, I reviewed it. Did you not Google it ahead of time? Do you have a sense of whether high school students still read The Red Badge of Courage? I got blank stares when I mentioned it here in Belgium. I think it is still on most high school curricula in America because it's so short. But maybe not. It doesn't do anything in the way of identity politics, so maybe it doesn't make the cut. Andrew Russell says, is Jonathan Agg's Ali biography better than the David Remnick one? I think so. Yeah. Litfic Reader, I hated Piranesi viscerally. What's to hate? What's to hate about Piranesi? much less viscerally. Colin, is Teddy Roosevelt's book on Cromwell worth reading? Wow. Wow. As a curiosity, sure, he was a really good writer. Sure. Why are you reading a biography of Cromwell? I, I mean, sure it is, but Antonio Fraser's book on Cromwell, better by far to read that than to read A Curiosity written by Theodore Roosevelt for money at breakneck speed from what he could remember. Uh, Kelly, now I gotta go and look at this channel. Oh my God. I'm not saying that you will hate it. I'm not saying that you won't subscribe. I'm not even saying that you won't get stuff out of it, but you will certainly see that I couldn't do any of that kind of crap on this channel. I respect your intelligence. I respect your ability to walk right into a work of literature and start grabbing pieces of it, start making it your own. I would never, ever set myself up as some kind of holier than thou priest taking on the airs that that kid takes on. I would never in a million years talk about works of literature in such a forbidding, top down way. Never. Oh, God, it just set my teeth on it. Uh, anyway, Andrew McDonald, I saw Poor Things last night. Have you seen it? If so, what did you make of it? I haven't seen it. Gina Stand Your Books is here. I'm glad I went to college before Twitter existed. Oh, yeah, me, you and me both. Oh my God, can you imagine the nightmare? Street Medic, I would rather be part of an inappropriate community like this than one full of mannequins. Inappropriate? What? Wilson's not here anymore. It might, I don't know about inappropriate, but it certainly doesn't put literature on a pedestal. I, it certainly does not do that. Literature is not a church. I hated those people even when I worked in a bookstore. I would have coworkers that had that kind of attitude. That, and I've read that in books as well. If first you read this author, then you'll be ready to graduate to this author. Then from there you'll be able to graduate from this author. There are no deviations. There's only one path. It's the one I've chosen. I am the priestess here, and I will dictate your doxology. Revolting, absolutely revolting. Uh, anyway, Grix. Okay, I'm going to finish my essay and read Boethius. I hope you and everyone else have a great end of the year and subsequent regeneration. Reading Boethius in English, are we? I trust that you have gone online and bought the paperback edition from Harvard University Press. I trust that that's the version you will have on your shelf. Jenny Parks, the first half of Piranesi confused me as to what was happening. The second half had me hooked. I can't imagine hating it viscerally. Gabby Angles, thoughts on James Bennett's editorial in The Economist? Are we really that precious? Haven't read it. Lindsay reads, good evening, Steve. I've spent the day reading The Flowering of New England by Van Wyck Brooks. It's making me really want to travel to Boston and explore all the wonder of literary history. Good luck finding it. Uh, that's the last time it was written about for a popular audience. But anyway, anyway, I have done my requisite complaining about Ben McAvoy. I've done my requisite complaining about a whole bunch of things, and also, you know, I wasn't going to bring it up. Um, I wasn't going to bring it up, but yeah, it is impossible to avoid seeing the reality that this is not just a visceral, ad hoc, gut level. I don't know if Steve's my kind of booktuber. In in booktube and the broader, the genre channels on booktube, there is a very pointed no. It's not visceral. It's not him. Everybody else, but not him. That's I don't think that's avoidable anymore for me to see. So that's very informative for the end of the year, for an end of the year thinking about booktube. Uh, but anyway, let's read a few more comments and then we'll wrap up, shall we? Andrew Russell says Ben McAvoy makes a point of instructing his viewers to spend ages and ages and ages and ages boring themselves with one single book. Can you imagine the way he's going to talk about the books that he mentioned coming up in 2024? I can't even imagine what his discussion of Tale of Genji will be like. I just can't imagine what that will be like. Uh, Reading by the River says goodbye from the Pacific Northwest. Enjoyed the chat and topics. I'm with Gina about all the mass media. Electric typewriters were the newfangled things when I was in college. Jenny Parks, good night all. Have a great reading session. Yes, we had a this was a fantastic live stream. I gave you no notice at all. There's 100 people here. Uh, Street Medic says, I respect your ability to know you're wrong about philosophy, yet still refuse to admit it. View from the bar is here. Okay, sorry to dwell. The Joyce Oates piece is a dark interview slash profile from a reporter she allowed to read her 4K page diary, then grilled her on the ugly bits. I want to do that with Steve. Connor, you're going after everyone tonight. McAvoy, fantasy booktubers, except Chatting with Nuts, who did talk to me on camera. Timothy Chalamet. Should we mention Cormac McCarthy next? Nicola Goodwin. Morning from Down Under, Steve. Finishing the remains of the day for a second time today. Love it just as much the second time. Enjoying your best of the year lists. Yeah, the lists are over for this year. Today was the last one. Best nonfiction. Colin, are there any books you'd recommend on nuclear energy? Nuclear energy. What? Just nuclear energy, just in general? uh, or nuclear warfare. What aspect of nuclear energy? There's a list that I could make. Uh, Jenny Park says we haven't had Jack Edwards for a while. Yeah, Jack Edwards. I don't know about Jack Edwards. I don't know. I have a horrible thought, and I don't want to think it. I have no proof of it whatsoever. Of course, like everyone else who spends too much time online, I saw H. Bomber Guy's latest video essay uh, destroying a number of YouTubers, but one YouTuber in particular for plagiarism, just destroying him, literally destroying him, so that he shut down his Patreon. He is now out of a job. He is not making piles of money from sponsorships or his videos anymore. People unsubscribed by the tens of thousands from his channel uh, because he plagiarized the scripts of a lot of his videos. And I've watched that video is masterfully done, and as it bloody well should be if the guy makes one video a year. And I've watched that video a number of times, just going over the mental decisions he must have made to make things have the order and sequence that they do. And then I watched Jack Edwards just recently did a video on hockey romance, on hockey themed romance. And I don't know, I probably had H. Bomber Guy's video on the brain when I was watching it, but it did not sound like Jack Edwards. The things that he was saying did not sound like him at all. And I immediately thought, what if? What if? I don't know. I don't want to think about it. I don't want to think along those lines. It could very well be. The kid did an English major, so he could write that way about hockey books. It didn't sound it. It didn't sound like he was the author of the text that he was reading. Uh, but anyway, Andrew Russell says, "Are your lists published yet?" Yes, my lists are entirely published on Open Letters Review. Every one of them. They've been coming out once a day since the 1st of December. Uh, Dylan Matthias says, "Good night, Steve. Thanks for the Steve stream. It was a joy as always." Yeah, we had a lot of people here. Very nice, considering that I had no notice whatsoever from a screw up of mine. Street Medic says, "I'm now sitting in a restaurant before the movie, ignoring everyone." uh, Colin says, "As a source of power," but I don't know what that refers to. Andrew Russell says, "Zoom stream with Jack Edwards with Ben McAvoy next week, Steve." I, I could not, I could not have a video conversation with Ben McAvoy without ripping him to shreds. I think he's a total fraud. I don't know how anyone can watch even that latest video on his book club for 2024 and not think this guy doesn't read. He is a complete fraud. He's a huckster. Jack Edwards, I think I could have an interesting conversation. But Ben McAvoy, I no, no, I think that would not work at all. Michael Lombardo says, "Is this our last Ninja of 23? Enjoy the rest of the reading year, Steve." There might be another Steve stream before the end of the year. If I do it tomorrow, maybe, or the next day. Steve Brunstein is here. Is the Corey Robin bio of Clarence Thomas good? Haven't read it. Tim's Too Many Books. Walter C. Patterson, Nuclear Power from the 80s. He's not a fan of nuclear power and the delights in his descriptions of the disaster. Litvic Reader. I like the first half of Piranesi, but the ending reminded me of a poor episode of Tales of the Unexpected. Street Medic says a rap battle between Steve and Ben. Ben might know rap. Ben certainly knows video games. Books? I say the same thing about him to the nth power that I have always said about Jack Edwards, which is don't take my word for it. Watch a couple of videos and then simply conduct the mental experiment of trying to picture them reading. Alone in a room, quietly reading. It's not possible. I don't think it's possible to do. Uh, anyway, Nicola Goodwin says, "What are you reading tonight, Steve?" Well, I'm reading this, a new biographical treatment of Dante. That'll take a lot of time. That might take the whole of the night. I will be rereading this paperback release of Vietnam after 8 years. The original came out in 2016. I think I showed it on this channel, and I'll be rereading bits and pieces of this. Why read Will Self? This is coming out in paperback in January in America, so that ought to do it for the night's reading. Andrew Russell says, "What is the best bio of Walter Isaacson by Walter Isaacson, except the Steve Jobs one? I've read that one. Are they all equally excellent?" I'm not a big fan of his Ben Franklin biography, and of course the Musk biography is garbage. Excuse me, but Einstein would work. That you might like that. Tolstoy 111, so you don't suck the marrow out of Shakespeare, Homer, and Tolstoy like Ben says he does. You just read them. Imagine that. Yeah, I just read them, and I encourage you to read them too, and maybe read them with me. I don't. Uh, Jenny Park says your sci-fi and fantasy added yet more books to my ever-expanding TBR. One day I'll get caught up. Andy Guy says, Steve, did you read the 1,000-page memo of Project 2025? Should we be scared? I didn't read the whole of it. No, but you should definitely be scared. Definitely. These people are not. They are not running to win an election. Political commentators from Tim Miller on down talking about the latest minutia on the ground in polling groups and swing states, as if any of that's going to matter. I, uh, anyway, you should be scared when Trump talks about being a dictator in front of crowds of paying audiences. They cheer, Americans cheering, and they're not alone. Uh, but anyway, Street Medic, my rules for Christmas: I get the most presents, the biggest presents, the coolest presents, the most expensive present. Otherwise, I fall to the floor and have a tantrum. uh, and Gandhi Angles points out that Isaacson wrote a biography of Kissinger 20 years ago, and that ought to do it for this Steve stream. Boy, oh boy, lots of company as usual. I am incredibly grateful, but I've got I've got these things to do. And then I'm pretty sure I want to pack things in and read all night long. I've got a couple of things to write, but I think if I give 45 minutes to that, that ought to be enough. But I wanted to give you a quick idea of some preliminary thoughts looking back on 2023. I'd love to know more of yours. I'll be watching for all of those videos. Anybody that makes videos, I watch for those videos, see people looking back at their own 2023. Uh, But anyway, I'm gonna wrap this up for now. This was tremendous fun. As always, I cannot thank you enough. If I do another Steve stream in 2023, it'll probably be soon. It'll probably be this weekend or very early next week. So maybe that will be the case. That will certainly be on my mind to do. But in the meantime, I will wrap this up and I will see you all soon. Thank you, BookTube.